So the more we as a society talk about racism and try to address racism, the more of a heated, contentious issue it becomes. The more of a push button type topic it becomes. Except with the youth. The youth, I believe, and these are observations. I'm not talking about research I've done. I'm just talking about from a person who's thought about racism a good part of every day for years and years, kind of unflinchingly. Um, the youth seem to respond. Um, if anything, you have a little bit of assholeish youth kind of misdirecting their anger in certain places, but otherwise, I'm talking about people. White kids generally are. Um, Kids seem to get along more than ever with each other. That we seem to have made great strides in getting kids to be more accepting of each other. However, amongst adults, no, not so much. And what you have, of course, I'm not going to harp on this too long because we already know this. We know that amongst whites, you will not hear a racist word unless you are part of the club, right? Unless you are. So gone are the days, or just. Even amongst, I mean, people are so careful nowadays with what they say. You wouldn't even guess how many people just kind of regularly drop N bombs in conversation and have no second thought about it when they're amongst their people. You know what I mean? And I don't mean amongst their people at work or amongst their people. I mean, they have to really be amongst their people. Which brings me to my main point about racism. The most interesting point, but the most obvious one, and the most clearly demonstrable one, is what I call the solution, the final solution, if you will, to racism, which is this: people have to live together, and nobody respects it when I say this. Nobody, either it's because it causes some kind of apprehension and anxiety, perhaps, or they just think it's just too simple and too ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. But the solution to racism is simply for people to live amongst each other, and that's the only way it works. It's the only way it works. So we can stop the video right here for certain people that don't want to go beyond the 2.5 minute mark. The solution is for different people to live amongst each other, work together, talk with each other, see each other regularly, deal with each other on a regular basis consistently, and that solves all problems. Now, if you want the more specificity, let me just tell you about how I observe things. And again, this is not necessarily logical. Doesn't necessarily. It's just, but observationally, I've noticed the following trend. So you have people, you have poor whites, and then you have well-to-do whites. The well-to-do whites who live amongst other whites talk the talk and walk the liberal walk and follow the talking points they're supposed to. Okay. The poor whites tend to, and this falls in the same category as people. Just we're going to talk about people with traditional values, meaning this mistrust of education and of things larger than their own communities, individual communities. But those people tend to embrace traditional values, and values we're going to use in a very loose term to mean just kind of you know Emmett Till type shit in the past. Um, and but in both cases, what you find is that the liberal, well-to-do, well-off white folks living in places like New England, or that live amongst pretty much just other white people, seem to be fine until they're met with the other. Okay, so and then all of a sudden it's like they start to have the same kind of gripes, and it starts to be reminiscent of what people associate with the South, right? With people's perceptions and the way they view each other, right? And that on both sides. So that happens, and then eventually, though, there is a kind of awakening, a kind of realization that comes from living and working together consistently over years in close quarters, same neighborhoods, roughly. So Memphis is an interesting place, and Memphis is one of those places where you find street by street things change drastically, but we're always in pretty close proximity to the other, no matter who we are. And but you got to understand you can't necessarily blame when you have a bunch of white people living in a small town isolated. They will be racist. They will talk as if they have like all kinds of like interactions with black people. The way they drop n bombs, the way they talk about people, you think that they hate these motherfuckers. They must have had something bad happen to them. No, they like don't even have any interactions with black people. They never see black people, just never see them. But they're like more than willing to like blame them for all their problems or any problems in general. They're like they love and that's typical though with in all parts of the world, right? Anytime you have a minority, anyone who looks different than the majority or people in power, then you are going to get this kind of thing. And people in football games in England, making fun of people, dark skinned players from other places. I mean, it happens everywhere, okay? But American racism is a little bit different with the slavery factor, and so it's a little bit different. It's the idea of it's like this, and the reason I talk about black and white so much is because your uncle doing an impression of a Chinese person, doing some kind of like ching chong 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 thing at a Chinese restaurant. It's super embarrassing. It makes you hate him, but it's not the kind of racism that we worry about. And you might be like, "What are you talking about? That's fucked up." Well, the kind of racism that's really responsible for this super hyper awareness that we have nowadays is black white racism in America. That's the crux of everything. It has nothing to do with Mexican. Nobody I know really has any kind of. I mean, this whole thing started with Trump and whatever. This is a whole nother thing. I mean, that's a whole that's a safe, group to kind of target. But when people hear Mexican, they really hear black, and they really hear people not like me. That because Jesus, I mean, Mexican people. You ask most people, do they really believe Mexicans are taking money from them? You know what I'm saying? I mean, people generally regard Mexicans as like family oriented and keeping to themselves and in some cases demure. Well, the adults, and so I just don't buy that. I mean, I guess in certain parts of the country, but generally speaking, and I say Mexican because I'm from Memphis. I say Mexican because I'm from Memphis. Obviously, from the Northeast, it's different. If you're from New York, it's Puerto Rican, it's Dominican, it's different. Okay, so you hear me say Mexican, you're like, listen, this racist fuck talking Mexican. It's because everybody in Memphis, everybody in this area of the South that's speaking Spanish, generally has parents from Mexico, or is from Mexico. So. And I love Mexico. I've been to Mexico City twice, so fuck you. Just like I've been married to a black woman, so fuck you. But that doesn't excuse anything, because like Hitler said, everybody has their favorite Jew. Anyway, I'm at the 8-minute mark. I feel like what I'm saying is different than what other people say. So, you know what I mean? What, the video's too long? If it's too long if I'm saying something you've never heard before. I mean, it's too long if I'm saying something like you've heard a million times. So, back to what I was saying, people living together. That's it. Look at Memphis. Look what people say about crime. Generally, people who are real hate Memphis and think Memphis is shit, and Memphis is like Detroit. Well, listen to me. I'm just going by what I hear. But people who are like that tend to be from Mississippi and work in Memphis, and they live in Mississippi for a reason, because to them, anywhere you have predominantly black community is the hood. Which is ridiculous. Fucking ridiculous. It's not the hood because it's black. You can have a majority black population and not have it be the hood. It's not the fucking hood. It's the hood. The hood denotes crime, poor, this and this. And it's very funny though, because when people automatically kind of, it doesn't matter that you're in bumfuck Tennessee, in Tipton County, wherever else, your uncle's stealing fucking copper wire and fucking so and so taking shit from the corner store and little Bobby addicted to opioids and all that shit's all fine and good and dandy, and it's like, oh well, wayward children, But then when it's black people, it's kind of like crime, debauchery. It's Sodom and Gomorrah minus the butt fucking, So let's think about this kind of thing, Let's and really what it has to do is fear. It's fear. and I don't understand this part either. And I'm going to touch on this real quick. The fear white people have black people. I don't get it. I don't get it. It's not because of guns. White people are the most gun owning fucking people ever. Like, you know what I'm saying? And generally, like, when was the last time you heard a news story about a black person going after white people and shooting them? You know, never. The news stories are all about, you know, some white person somewhere, school, grocery store, wherever, going haywire. It's generally like, you know, you want to talk about like stories about gun violence. It's generally black on black, right? Neighborhood within the neighborhood, poor neighborhoods. So, you know, it's obviously white on white. Depends on the community, depends on the neighborhood. But anyway, this whole fear of danger, this fear, what black people don't want to fuck with white people. They don't want to mess with them. They're like, nope, not gonna do it because the second I even look at this person wrong or fucking pull down my hood a little bit, I'm gonna get the fucking cops calling me. So no, they're not trying to fuck with you, man. They're definitely asking you for money. They're definitely trying to play into the whole guilt you have over being an asshole and asking you for $1, right? And then asking you for two. But anyway, the whole solution, if you've ever been aware of your own mentality, this is crucial. You have to be aware. You can't sit there and be, I'm not racist. I'm not racist. I'm not. Yes, you are fucking. If you're white, you're a racist to some degree. You are. Definitely are. If you're not, then you were raised in a fucking hippie commune, and, you know, or watching, you know, interracial sex shows as a form of education. Otherwise, you are somewhat racist as a white person, if not very racist. I'm trying to be, you know, generous here. And so, if you acknowledge that at least, then you are accepting of the fact that, oh, yeah, you know what? As I get to know people, these ideas I had are not quite right, and I'm not really sure about things. And like times I'm like, I'm always sure this person's gonna be like this, and this person's name signifies this, and it doesn't. Oh my god. Well, that's a stupid name. It must be stupid mentality. Stupid parents don't care. The parents don't care. They fucking don't care. Why would they do this? You know what I mean? Obviously, they don't give a fuck. They don't give a fuck about society. They don't want anyone to fit in. They just want someone to fucking hustle. You can go down the whole. I'm not gonna say rabbit hole because it's a bullshit term. It's a fucking internet term. And you fucking use that term, you're fucking a cliche person. That's right. You're a cliche loving ass motherfucker. Fuck these cliches. Fuck this internet speak. If you're my age, you should be using fucking internet speak. You should know better. If you're younger than 30, you don't know any better. You think it's common because you don't read books anymore. And anyway, another thing. Where am I? 12, 13 minutes. Okay, no one's watching this video. I don't care because you know what? I feel like I am communicating something different than anybody else is saying. And if I'm wrong, tell me I'm wrong. I invite you to tell me I'm wrong. Clearly, if you like, or, well, like, fuck this guy. You don't need. So I don't know anything. Tell me. But if you're not going to watch, you know, you kind of like relinquish that whole, like, you know, I don't need to bother to tell him because I don't know, and I don't need to know because he's obviously dumb, and I don't need to listen to him in the first place. But anyway, the solution of racism, again, I'm going to come back to this, is you have to live and work amongst people. I'm not saying you have to live, and ideally, it would be, so a socialist, it would be black, white, black, white, black, white, black, white, all up and down the block. The black people won't like it, believe it or not. They'll fucking hate it. The white people won't like it. They'll act like they like it. But black, white, black, white, black, white. That'd be the way to do things. To solve a problem. You know, and a super left liberal. Oh my god, fucking, we're in the Soviet Union. Well, we're not in the Soviet Union, are we? Because they would never do something like that. So, you know, get your fucking history straight. But, no, but just people living amongst each other, working amongst each other. You will find far less. And that's why Memphis is the place to look for the least amount of racism you're going to find. People make comments. When people make comments about certain people, when they say, oh, you know, whatever, you know how they are, that's not fucking race. That's not the racist problem. When somebody's like, psh, like when the Chinese guy, like, my fault. He was an Asian guy. I don't know where he was from. But he was angry. Maybe that's me, right? Maybe that's my innard. prejudice. I have a problem, China's and whatever. Um, but the guy session being like, someone's taking too long in line. They're like debating the price of cigarettes or something like this, and then when the black woman finally left, the person of Asian descent, Asia, that gigantic continent which encompasses Russia and Turkey and the Middle East and everywhere else, Asian. He said, people don't want to pay fucking for anything. They don't want to fucking pay for anything. God damn it, man. They don't want to pay for anything. Because perspective of people coming to this country are kind of like, what the fuck's your problem? Why can't you give it the program? You know what I mean? And believe it or not, us racist Americans actually do understand a little bit better than some other people do coming to this country about what's been going on. Can I end on that note? I don't know if I can or not. No one's watching the video anyway. 16 minutes. Nobody's watching the fucking video. Unless somebody's fucking has a big hard on for me, which they don't, because look at me now. 5 years ago, I looked like I was 35. Now I look like I'm fucking 65. What can I do? Just fucking suffer through it and never have sex again. It's my only options. I don't have options.